Just a heads up before the episode. This is part 2 of a 3-part discussion. You should be able to find part 1 on whatever channel you found this episode on, and part 3 will be releasing a week after this one. Thanks for listening, and let's get back into it.
See, because Ian and I internet met for his podcast he was doing with a friend of his called A Matter of Taste some 10, 12 years ago. So we know how long we can.
Yeah.
I was a guest several times. We know. And that's why I was like, no, I can imagine what a commentary from you would be like. You need to do this. You absolutely have to do this. So, I mean, you can talk about any part of researching the music, what you ended up doing. But what I had wanted to know was, in the end, because now there have been various times where you said, I think this is my favorite piece of music in the game. And then you said, no, I think maybe it's this one. What did end up being your favorite piece of music, or particularly new piece of music or redone piece of music? What was your favorite in the game?
So I think my favorite new piece of music, just because I think it functions so well, and just the overall vibe of the piece, like, I think my favorite new piece of music is After Daddy, the track that plays after the Abstract Daddy boss fight, when you're back in Angela's apartment or whatever it is, and she goes to town on the dead Abstract Daddy
bless her heart
body and throws a TV at it, and she has that interaction with James, because first of all, it's such a, like, it starts off with this like dark minor key piano. Just talking about it aesthetically, it hits a lot of those for lack of a better term, beats that a lot of Silent Hill tracks do, where it's got cool piano. It's also got like that lo-fi aspect that a lot of the Silent Hill soundtracks have, where you've got like drum machine and certain samples or certain like keyboard tones being used in very particular ways. But in terms of how it functions in the game, that I think is the piece of music that just made, like, hit me so much emotionally when with the way that scene plays out. She's Angela is like yelling at James, and he's trying to tell her it's okay, and she's like, it's not okay, which, yeah, it's not okay, James, like, give her some room. But for that whole beginning part of the conversation, it's just sort of like ambient stuff in the background that's kind of like playing into the tension of the scene, and then it hits the dialogue that is from the original game and that Gianna Keel delivers so beautifully, where she starts talking about how like, you all want the same thing, say it, or you could just force me. And that's where the piano hits. And even just thinking about it, like, it hits me because it's such a, this will be coming out in a staying on theme video in a couple weeks after we record this. I don't know when we're going to release this, but it's such a humanizing moment in the midst of all this terrible stuff that's happening, all this fantastical stuff that's happening, to have the piano come in. And the piano is such a grounding instrument on the soundtrack when you've got industrial noises and synth noises and all this different stuff. For that piano to hit as Angela breaks down, it feels like such a it's heartbreaking, but it is also so I can't ever think of a better word to describe it, as like human and like empathetic and compassionate in a certain way, to like have that piece of music underscore that moment. And then the shift, how it shifts so subtly into Angela's shift in that scene, where she goes from being completely broken down to turning on James as he's like, I just want my Mary. And she's like, your precious little Mary, at least she was. And then she's like, the tables turn. It's so It's such a beautiful piece of music, such an interesting piece of music because of that shift, and it just supports the scene so well. Um, yeah, I think
Yeah, and
that. Yeah.
it's such a gentle or sensitive way to confirm for people that line of dialogue you
Yes.
could force me. Because I know that even at that point, I've seen streamers go, "Oh, okay, yeah, so that is what was happening." Like
Yeah.
they picked up the idea, but they weren't entirely sure that's what they were getting at. And so to have this very gentle piece of music, while she says it in a fairly oblique way,
Hmm.
and then then it turns into also her anger, her mistrust, so
Hmm.
you're already feeling whatever way about, oh, this poor girl, that is what happened. Okay. And then it's like,
Hmm.
oh, okay. And James gets upset in response and gets this very harsh, cold look on his face. And you're like, oh, okay. There's something going on here that I didn't
Yeah.
realize. Oh, okay. Like it's such an interesting kind of turn of the screw, for lack of a,
Yeah,
a better phrase.
and particularly in horror, where like especially with horror movies, there are these tried and true things that horror movie composers tend to use, like the string stab, the like creepy sound in the background, and like from the beginning of the Silent Hill series, Akira Yamaoka made an active choice to avoid those things because he's like, if I want to scare people, I need to hit them with something unexpected. And so anytime I hear a moment in a horror soundtrack specifically where we aren't just trying to create tension or horror or scare the audience, um, that to me speaks of like some level of depth, which like the is the Silent Hill 2 story. It's not just a horror game, it is a very human story about something, about these awful things that happened to these people by these people. And I'm always looking for that human element in any story uh, that I experience. Uh, and yeah, to have that moment of melody and harmony where up until that point there's just dissonance or creep factor. It is again like, oh, this is the, like you said, it's confirming that moment for people who maybe weren't sure about it, and also it's showing that there are more dimensions to this game, this story, than just, hey, this is something to be scared of. It's like, no, this is also something to like appreciate on a fundamental human level, like the what's going on here. I feel like I'm just kind of rambling at this point. I don't uh
Well, this is a slight variation on that question, and it might have a different
mhm,
answer. I I feel like when you got into this, I watched you discover all of these thematic story parallels in the songs, in the music that you weren't or
mhm,
we weren't necessarily aware of when you started. And so like my favorite like actual staying on theme video, or the moment I was there in chat,
mhm.
was Heaven's Night, when you brought
Oh
in the
yeah.
tritones, and it was like these Phantom of the Opera chords you like brought up out of the background, and I'm sitting here in like a dark room at 9 o'clock at night being like, oh my God. Like it was like you had just pulled this curtain back, and it
Mhm,
was this visceral kind of moment of, oh my God, he hid that in there. Oh my God. That's so great, but it's also so creepy.
mhm.
And what was your favorite like discovery? Your favorite like the one you just posted, the Echoes of Silence, when I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh my God, it has parallels to True."
Yeah.
That's nuts. That is nuts. So like what was your favorite like let me sit down and explain. We found well, not we, you found all of this stuff that connected to things that we had no idea until you sat down with it.
Oh, I gotta take a moment to think about that because there have been several times where that's happened, and it's often like after I've done a recording and I'm editing
Yeah.
it, that and I'm re-listening to stuff, and I'm like, oh wait, there's even more here than what I talked about on stream. Crap. um,
I didn't think of this ahead of time, or I would have been like, hey, think about that. But like,
yeah,
okay, so you found Magdalene and Anam Cara, you
yeah.
found that in several places, references to that.
Uh, So there's the one in Echoes of Silence, the true one that I did really like. I think again it goes back to After Daddy, actually discovering while I was editing the video for Promise of the Forgotten that in those like ambient tones you hear at the end of the scene when Angela starts to like brandish the knife at James and the piano falls away, you can hear the opening notes of After Daddy there.
Yeah.
And that thematic connection where it's like, oh, in the same way, like I always like using Lord of the Rings as a comparison because I feel like the themes, the musical themes in that are very recognizable, and so it's a and a lot of people have seen it, so it's a reference point that people can use. But like I remember rewatching Fellowship of the Ring like years after the movies came out in theater and stuff, and then watching the Council of Elrond scene, and as Boromir starts to talk about like his father being like the steward of Gondor and how he's like doing like holding Minas Tirith against the forces of evil and stuff, you hear the melody for the Minas Tirith theme, and you don't get it
Yeah.
in full until Return of the King. I didn't realize that until like years after I saw those movies and had been listening to the soundtrack so much, and then watched that scene. I'm like, wait a second, he seeded that in the first movie. So it's a
Yeah.
similar situation where with Abstract Daddy and Promise of the Forgotten in the remake, the fact that not only is this a new piece of music, but thematically, Akira Yamaoka thought to use it to in a very like obscured way, kind of because it's on these like synthy ambient tones, and so you can't even pick out the notes very well. But to hear that melody as Angela seems to be having a moment where she may be mistaking James for her father, her brother, or something is happening in her that is making her like brandish a knife at James. And the score is telling you, like, oh, this is connecting back to her dad.
I'm trying to think. I tried to be at as many of the streams as I could. I think I maybe missed one
Mm-hmm.
due to like a medical procedure. So I'm trying to go back and go, okay, I was there for almost every single musical discussion. I know that the discussion of various time signatures in Shadows of the Lover's Tree, I know that was a really interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
There was Heaven's Night. There was Beneath the Dull Moon, which is why my Tumblr side blog, which I reblog Ian on a lot. That's why it has that name. Talked about Laura piano. Um, we also talked about the sheet music that
Oh yeah,
had like stories kind of buried in it that
yeah,
like I was able to be like, okay, Vers la Flamme, kind of like a moth towards the flame, okay, that's cool. But like you came in with the backstory of was it Einsamer Blumen and the Schumanns?
yeah.
Like,
Which I have to give credit to. I think there was someone on Reddit who actually made those connections before I did. But yeah, like the the sheet music that they use, yeah, and some I don't have the name in front of me, but the piece that was written by Robert Schumann. Uh, I should clip that out as its own thing because it's so interesting.
absolutely. Like
It's
all of the sheet music discussions need to come out.
yeah, it's like there's this whole thing about like Robert Schumann and his wife Clara Schumann, and the fact that they were friends with who's the other composer? Uh, why am I blanking on his name?
I
Brahms.
okay.
Um, which
Which the town is
yeah,
named
the sister town to Silent
after
Hill is named Brahms.
Rams.
Brahms. So there's that, but
Yeah.
then there's the
I'm glad I
fact
remembered that.
that like uh Robert Schumann, towards the end of his life, he was suffering like dementia or like a terrible illness, and so Brahms came to like comfort Clara Schumann. There's also like possibly something like some sort of uh, secret unrequited love that Brahms might have had for Clara Schumann. And
Oh,
thinking about that stuff in the context of a story about a guy whose wife suffered a terrible illness at the end of her life, and then this other woman who is like who he's potentially like developing a relationship with. There, it's not like a one-to-one thing, but
But
they
like
they
maybe some eyes are wandering while the spouse is sick
yeah,
and what's happening with that and what's going on in maybe her mind and
all of that to say, like, the thing that people have recognized, and like so many people, including myself and you, I think, like our minds have been blown by, is like how many details that Bloober Team put into this game that were all clearly put in for a reason. Like they thought it out beforehand. And I like the thing that I always want to bring up is like it is such a smart storytelling philosophy to have, to look at things like everything from like the posters on the wall to the dialogue, and think about what opportunities are here for storytelling. And Bloober Team, it seems like they had the time and the money and energy to take every opportunity they could to make every detail in the game point towards the story in some way.
like something I'm writing right now for the commentary 8 write-up, which is the end of Brookhaven Hospital. We're going to move on to another level finally. Is that at one point I have a screenshot of James standing in front of the hygiene poster with pulling gloves onto the hands, the whole thing about hands, he keeps looking at his hands. He has memories of maybe doing something with them that may come out. And then there's a dead plant over to the right. And it's very much my whole, James is the pest in the Hedera
Mm-hmm.
helix at the, who kills any plant, any woman he cares about dies because of him. And
Mm-hmm.
so you've got this dead plant there. And my argument is not that Bloober wanted you to stand right there and be like, aha, that's what this means. It's that they've seeded so much of this background decor that you could take a screenshot at almost any moment. And the background would tell you is James Sunderland is kind of a piece of shit. And he hasn't remembered that yet, but he's going to.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's just infinite combinations of like all of these things around. And I think that's why all of these, it's like they develop a language of symbolism so that anytime you see something with the number 3, you see an M, you see a dead plant, hands. Um, oh, it's just like moths, butterflies,
Yeah.
red flowers, white flowers. Anytime you see that, you sit there and you go, okay, they keep using this. What, almost like a dream dictionary. It's like, what can you put together with these symbols? What kind of pictogram language what is it saying? And it's not even that they pre-programmed it to say those things. They've left you these tools to say all these things in every time you turn around.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise I sound insane. Like I'm not saying that's literally what they're I will go to the mat about the window because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise the window makes no sense at all.
um,
And I will say Salome got to that cut scene and she had never seen it. Like she obviously had been standing there
oh.
doing the motion capture like she feels sick. Maria leans against the wall and James is standing there staring at this window for no apparent reason. And she was like, "Oh, that's beautiful. I had never actually." She had seen some of the cutscenes, but hadn't seen a lot of them, especially if she wasn't in them. And she's like, "That's beautiful. That music is beautiful. I'd never seen that." So she couldn't be like, "And here's what James was actually thinking. I
Yeah.
can tell you." And I'm like, "Okay, that's the most specific question in the world, but." You had Luke Roberts on your stream. Can you ask him what was James thinking
Yeah.
here? And he's probably going to go, I don't even remember what you're talking about. I mean, it's such a specific question, but like
Yeah.
that's how deep I think you and I have been drilling down where it's like, no, we
Mm-hmm.
need to know. Okay, so speaking of Salome playing the game,
Mm-hmm.
I the reason I lost my damn mind when you told me about that, and we've talked about that since then, is that to have the actress who plays both Maria and Mary playing the guy who, you know, did whatever, the person, both the character and the actress who has the most reason, the strongest memory of what he did. She has talked about on the stream actually filming the videotape or cap mocapping
Hmm.
the videotape sequence and how they did multiple takes. And she screamed harder in some of them than others, and they didn't use those. And like, she has a very visceral memory of what the secret at the heart of this game is.
Hmm.
And I don't even know that we should not spoil it. I mean, you spoiled it from day
Yeah.
one, and this is your our
Hmm.
discussion of your playthrough. But she, of all people, is not going to forget what he did. But
Yeah.
now she's playing him. And it's almost in a way like Mary is getting to play him. And
Hmm.
she keeps saying things like,
Yeah.
she really,
Spoilers for anyone who wants to like be completely not spoiled by the end of the game. Just throwing that out there right now.
yeah, we may want to put a text warning that's like,
Yeah.
Cleo's about to drop this. She's talked about how it's like James's inner aggression is coming out in the way she loves beating up the monsters and killing them and stomping them into a fine pace. And she kind of laughs and is like, yeah, it's kind of coming out. Okay. And her kind of being in his shoes.
Hmm.
And then she got to the part where you're going to Rosewater Park at night and you run through the tunnel with the Mandarin underneath. I
Hmm.
think maybe two different tunnels. And she was so freaked out by that,
Oh yeah.
probably because you can't entirely see them and you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
She is freaking out. And she said, you know, I think that's the first time I thought, this man's been through enough. He's been through enough already. And I was like, okay, so it begins. Okay,
Yeah.
I want to know. She was like, I want to get in water because I think he deserves it.
Hmm.
And she, knowing that keeping him at low health helps you get in water. I mean, like, I think technically you only have to do it for a minute and a half and then
Yeah.
you're set. She's got him through the entire game just totally ragged. And she's like, yeah, he deserves it. So I'm like, at what point is she going to kind of be like, no, I mean, he deserves it, but I feel kind of like the Leave ending, the way
Yeah.
Mary is kind of like, but yeah, I don't think she actually uses the words I forgive you, but she gives him so much more grace in that
Yeah.
ending than, let's say, Maria, in which he's a piece of shit. You murdered me, all of that. I'm curious as to where Salome's going to land emotionally when she gets to In Water, because a lot of this she hasn't seen on screen. Like
Yeah.
how good Luke Roberts' acting is, like just the facial capture.
Hmm.
She was there with him with giant helmets on. Like,
Hmm.
how is this going to affect her when she gets there? So that's why I lost my mind because I was like, I absolutely have to see this.
Hmm.
Even more so than him playing it in theory, because
Yeah.
like this is his character. He feels however I'd love to see that, but
Yeah.
he already feels however he feels about James. He knows he was there. So what that reminded me of also was you were going for the Stillness ending, which is an expanded version of In Water. You
Hmm.
can only get it on New Game Plus, so she can't get it at this point, but you could. And so that's what you were going for. And you said you had seen it
Hmm.
at whichever point a while back, but you didn't want to watch it again
Hmm.
until you finished the game and kind of saw how it hit you at that point. And I know it's my favorite ending. I think you might have said it was yours, that or Leave maybe.
Yeah. It might be my new
So
favorite ending.
so when we actually got to the ending, I think you probably needed time to process it as well, but I
Hmm.
don't know that on the stream you really told me what I wanted to know, which was like, okay, so how does it hit now? Now that you've
Oh.
gone through all of this all over again, how did this whole journey through all of this and the music and you did say you really liked Umbra Vale
Yeah.
when you really got to sit with it, which I guess I was so focused on just the total experience because
Hmm.
I just always want to get under the desk and like cry. I love it. I'm not a crier, and I'm just
Hmm.
like, oh my. So clearly, it's effective, even if I
Hmm.
didn't single that part of it out. But I had really wanted to hear you talk about like, okay, so how did that hit when you got there?
Yeah. And like speaking again to where do I start? I was rewatching it actually the other day because I wondered how much of like what I was feeling in that moment was like on my face or if you could hear it in my voice because like it did have an impact on me And
Yeah.
uh, speaking again to the way that I've talked about, like, the starting with the music, I think that is part of what hit me first when the ending actually starts, because it's also kind of like the first thing that you hear. Like, you hear the rain, and then you hear those first chords on the piano start out. And particularly thinking about the music in the context of the other endings, we've talked a little bit about how, like, the Leave ending, even though it seems to be one of the more positive endings, the music for it is kind of like spooky and unsettling, which
Yeah.
might suggest that, like, oh, maybe there's more to this than just like, oh, they get to leave the town and it's
Early
happily ever
on,
after or whatever.
I think I was maybe the one who suggested that, like, maybe it's not as great an ending as
Yeah.
it sounds. And it was like, as much as we might want them to get to leave and,
Hmm.
have him live for Laura like Mary wanted, it's like, this isn't really feeling like a happy ending.
And
It's a
it's
church and a cemetery and fog, and I don't know if they're alive.
Yeah, and it's the same way in the original Silent Hill too, because I rewatched that version of the Leave ending after the stream, I think, or around that time, and the music is just as ambiguous in the original PS2 Silent Hill 2, and then the In Water ending is similar to the Leave ending, where it's more ambient and stuff. I think the In Water ending, the music is a little bit more somber. But it's more of just like kind of basic minor key feel, and uh, it underscores the letter reading. And
And
so
to clarify, Stillness is new. Stillness is
Stillness is a
new to
new
the
ending.
remake.
Yes.
This is a Bloober Team invention,
Hmm.
which I think is another reason they've really done interesting work expanding that and putting one more note in the emotional spectrum of
Yeah.
these endings.
Uh, so again, speaking specifically about the music, I feel like I've said that a billion times at this point, as if anyone could have
That's what
forgotten
you
what
were
I'm
there to
talking about.
do.
Um, in the same way that the piano hitting at that particular moment during the After Daddy Angela scene, that piano hitting right at the beginning of the Stillness ending had an emotional impact on me. Uh, because of how, like, I've talked a lot about in the stream and in the videos and just now in the podcast about how the Silent Hill soundtracks have a wide emotional range. They can be very consonant and harmonious and melodic and familiar sounding, and they can be incredibly grating, dissonant, disturbing, and everything in between. And when it comes to the more familiar sounding stuff, it feels like Akira Yamaoka uses that anytime he wants you to have that emotional human connection. Like, the Promise theme is a very familiar chord progression because he wants you to feel like, oh, this is something familiar. This is something that emotionally resonates with me, and I don't have to think too hard about, like, yeah, no, this feels natural to me. Uh, and so thinking about the music in the Stillness ending, especially in the context of something like Leave, where it is more ambient and kind of ambiguous, for it to start off with just something that's like, oh, this is another very basic, familiar minor key chord progression, and it feels like it feels just like it's not hiding anything behind it. It is just saying, like, hey, here is how I want you to feel in this moment, and it's heartbreaking. The fact that it's on the piano, the fact that it's those particular chords that just keep going back, looping back around to our tonic chord, and it's just a very simple, sad sounding chord progression. So that's the first thing that impacts me when I'm watching that, uh, and it was funny. I was watching Salome's playthrough today, and she talked about how, like, uh, she kind of offhandedly mentioned how Stillness is kind of like the new version of In Water. And I remember that
Hmm.
was my reaction when I first watched the Stillness ending on YouTube, like right after I had finished the game. I was like, oh, I don't really. It feels a lot like I watched In Water and then I watched Stillness, or I don't know which order I watched them in, but I was like, oh, these endings hit a lot of the same beats, but Stillness is just like a little bit different. So I wonder, like at the time, I wondered, oh, is Stillness the version of In Water that they originally wanted to do, like, and then they were like, no, we need something closer to the original In Water or something like that. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think it was because now I look at Stillness and I feel like there are elements of Leave in it. I feel like
Yeah.
and potentially even the Maria ending. I don't know, but it feels almost like a mixture of In Water and Leave, where you have James sitting in the car ready to drive his car into the lake, but you have this incredibly it is a much more compassionate version of the In Water ending, where you have Mary there in the back seat saying it's okay, and which is even more than she gives in the Leave ending. Like we talked before about like the grace that she offers him in the Leave ending, and it's the line like after he says, "I did this terrible thing to because I wanted you out of the way." She says, "If that were true, then why do you look so sad?" Just opening the door of like, "Hey, maybe that wasn't the only reason you did this. Maybe there was more to it than just you hated me. Maybe the fact that you've gone through a literal hell to get here just to see me again is an indicator that this isn't just black and white. I did a terrible thing. I'm an evil person, and I should die now."
But it's still a rhetorical
It's
question.
still a
Like she
rhetorical
doesn't
question.
even, yeah, but then you get to Stillness and he actually says, I'm so sorry. I'm not sure he even says it that explicitly in Leave.
No,
He's
he
just like,
doesn't.
I am so sorry. Right.
Like the most you get that's the other thing. The most emotion you get out of him is after she asks, "Then why do you look so sad?" I think he like takes her hand and you see him get choked up, but he doesn't. I don't know. I don't think he cries. And then Mary gives him the letter, and that's sort of how they segue out of that scene. But yeah, in the Stillness ending, I think I talked to you in an email about this, or maybe even just when we were chatting the other day. Like, you get something that none of the original endings gave you, which is James saying, "I'm sorry," and Mary responding with, "It's okay."
It's like a full catharsis that they don't
Yeah.
give you. And the oh my God, the crying. The crying
Yeah.
just oh my God.
That there's that too. Just
Can't
James
handle it.
showing that emotion, that level of emotion, where like before that you only really get like the moments of huge dramatic despair, like when he shouts for Maria when she gets killed the third time. Um, and there are other moments where he shows emotion, but to see him just sob like that, it's
Or like other times with like the sad window where you can tell something's going on in his head, but what is it?
mm,
Or a lot of the times, other than like the one big moment, for Maria, a lot of it is, or like when he sinks to his knees after
yeah,
Maria's been speared,
yeah,
but doesn't cry, doesn't say anything, but you can tell he's just totally despairing,
mm,
but it's very bottled up. And to just finally get to Stillness and be like, oh my God,
yeah.
I want to curl up and just die.
It's
Oh, this
such a
is
release.
good. It's so good, but
Mm,
it's like, oh, and I'm not usually that person. I am not usually that person who wants to watch the tragic romance to get the
mm,
cathartic cry. I'm not that person at all.
yeah.
I don't cry, and I'm just like, oh my God, it's so good.
Well, it's because they
You
earn
know,
it. They earned it
they
with
do.
all of the details that they have in the game, all the storytelling that they do. That's what good storytellers do. They earn those emotionally cathartic moments. Because there's
Yeah.
also probably someone out there who's like, "Oh, well, the Stillness ending, like, maybe it makes their emotions too explicit, or maybe they don't deserve the 'I'm sorry, it's okay' moment or something like that." But for me, experiencing the game that they made, that the original team made, and then that Bloober team made, I think they earned that moment. Um, and it's also, yeah, sorry, that I have another thought, but I want to just make sure that that's clear. Like, I think that they earn everything that happens in the Stillness ending.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to make sure you
Yeah,
get that. My brain
it's okay.
can work. This is what it's okay. This is why Um, it's I like the time loop stacking endings idea
Mm-hmm.
because at that point he's gone through all these endings. You have
Mm-hmm.
this concept of he has been through this so many times and he hasn't learned, he's refused to become a better person. He's tried to escape everything you can think of. He's tried to bring her back. And so to me it's another way of earning that moment where he's just like, I am so sorry. I
Mm-hmm.
tried to leave you for somebody else. I tried to bring you back. I tried to live in the Twilight Zone with you. I've tried so many things, and finally, I am just so sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had initially thought, in this idea, you put leave at the end, it's the most informative. They actually walk out into wherever. And then you had said, but what about stillness? And I was like, that is the most emotionally cathartic one.
Mm-hmm.
And it does imply maybe he breaks the loop, maybe he doesn't.
Yeah, and so that's
And
another way where I think this was a thought that I had. We got back to it
oh, good.
naturally.
Okay,
Um,
excellent.
I it's another way that I think stillness is kind of a mix of the in water and leave endings potentially, where
Yeah.
like I didn't bring this up on stream. We ended up talking about it afterwards, but there's a theory that James jumps out of the car before it reaches the water, or like he
Puts a
opens
brick on the pedal
like he
and
opens the
yeah.
door, puts a brick on the pedal, and lets the car with Mary's body drive itself into the lake while he leaves. Um, and yeah, it's just such an interesting ending. Like I was rewatching it the other day, um, and again looking at it, just trying to look at it and figure out, okay, what were their intentions in every single moment of this, like looking at it, very close reading, analytical writer brain, like, okay, why did
Mm-hmm.
they do this, why did they do this? Because first of all, there's the fact that uh, it does it is in some ways uh, it hits a lot of the same beats as in water, where like it starts off with the same dialogue, I think, where he says, I'm sorry, I tried to move on, uh, but I just couldn't. And in the in water ending, he says, but you're not here. And the stillness ending, Mary pipes up and says and starts to talk to him. And so that's one of the beats that they hit. Another one is him looking in the back seat. In the in water ending, he looks in the back seat, and we get like a camera angle from the back seat of like, oh, he's looking at, we assume, Mary's body underneath a blanket.
Like, can we appreciate for a moment just how morbid and awful and wonderful it is that it's like
Yeah.
that's her dead body in the back seat.
Mm-hmm.
He's imagining, if he's imagining her ghost sitting up, or maybe it really is, it's like, okay, but her dead body has been there.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That is so like
So
on the nose what I'm thinking of, but it's like,
yeah.
wow, okay, we are directly connecting that like this is not just Mary in her sick room as if he hasn't killed her yet. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no, this is explicitly
Yeah.
she was wrapped in a sheet and she's sitting up, imagined or not, and being like, honey, it's okay. And you're
Yeah.
like, wow, I guess it really is then.
And so that's another beat that they hit, where in the in water ending he looks into the back seat. In the stillness ending, he starts to turn his head and then stops. And I have thought about that so much in the past couple of days, because one, there's just the fact that like, okay, it's different than the in water ending, um, and maybe he doesn't want to look back and see if she's really there or not. If it is potentially an illusion, he doesn't want to dispel that illusion. And then I thought about the Orpheus and Eurydice stuff again, where it's like, oh,
Oh my
he's
God.
choosing to not look back.
This time he doesn't want to look back. He wants to,
And then
this game, this
again,
game. It's like we just shake our fist and just Bloober,
it's
you
like
know.
we're curled up on the floor, and then we get up, and then we think of another thing, and then we're back on the floor again.
And they just kick us, and it's like, okay,
So
I
that's the
get back down
second
here.
beat. The third one, I like the last thing. I don't even know if it's a beat that happens in the in water ending specifically, but there's the fact that in the in water ending, we don't. I'm almost positive we don't see the letter at all. And so there's a potential reading of it. Well, and that until we see it like floating down in the water, and so we assume like, okay, he had it in the car with him, and it's
I
floating
am
down into
not
water.
entirely certain. I could be confabulating this. My memory is that he looks over at the letter in the passenger seat and leaves it there and does not open it.
So that is definitely what
Oh,
happens in the Stillness ending.
okay. I
And
had assumed he was looking at it and being like, and I'm just never going to read what she
yeah,
said. And that kills me. And then I thought he could have already read it and then been looking at it and being like,
mhm,
she wanted me to live for others, but
yeah,
fuck that, I guess.
I think
So,
I,
yeah,
the,
it might be there.
I'm pretty sure those beats happen in both endings. In Water, I think we just see him like looking over into the seat, but we don't get a shot that shows the letter in the seat. In the Stillness
Hmm.
ending, we get a shot of him looking and we see the letter in the seat. I think the envelope is opened if we want to be that granular about it. Um,
Yeah.
but the thing that like intrigues me the most about that moment is it's it's right after Mary says, "I've always been waiting for you,"
Yeah.
and also in that moment the music changes. It
Yeah.
changes from that kind of sad, somber. Again, the word that comes to mind is like compassionate chord progression to just this dark chord that has that like it's a minor chord with that minor sixth on top of it. Akira Yamaoka loves that chord, and it adds this feeling of tension of like, okay, what is this meant to convey? Then is it James looking at the letter and reconsidering like driving himself into the lake, and so yeah, he does turn on the car, get out of it, and then throw a brick on the pedal, or is it just saying like, okay, we're past the emotional catharsis, and now we're getting back into the darkest moment of this story, potentially.
Yeah, I think the brick idea is a little too much off-screen shoe leather for me,
Yeah,
especially with the lack of time that passes. But however, I do think they've left that open enough that if you
yeah,
really wanted him to break the cycle, he could. I think
yeah,
that's a little gift they give you.
and again, to be fair,
But
they're like people keep pointing to the audio. Like in the in water ending, we see him turn the car on, and then
yeah,
it cuts to black, and he drives off. In Stillness,
like why do it differently?
yeah,
Like
in
you could have
Stillness,
just done it the same
it
way.
cuts off. It cuts to black before he turns the car on, and then we hear a noise that isn't there in the in water ending, and a lot of people think that is the sound of him opening the car door and leaving it. So yeah,
Which it is different, but that also kind of so I think there's room to pick which one you like. And
yeah,
I think one of the reasons I still stay with he doesn't break the loop is that minor chord.
hmm,
Much the way the Leave music
yeah,
doesn't feel like a happy ending. It's kind of like this is still kind of dark. She's always been waiting for him,
hmm,
but like at best maybe he gets to die and stay dead this time. Maybe she'll be waiting for him
hmm,
in, quote, silent heaven, as
yeah,
the name of the main game is. And maybe he's paid enough penance, but I don't know that he gets out of the car to break the loop. But
yeah,
I think you could interpret it that way. Like, I think that's valid.
yeah. It's one of those situations similar to with the Leave ending where like I want to me personally I want to believe the more like potentially more optimistic ending. Like whenever people are talking about how like well Leave doesn't really feel like a happy ending, I'm like, well, just let it be happy. It's similar with Stillness. I'm like, it's well, there's that minor chord there, but I just wanted to have some sort of like uplifting. I don't
Just
know.
something. That's the thing. This is why I keep saying over and over and over. And I know you agree with me. I don't think this game gives you answers. I think it gives you tools to create
Yes.
your own interpretations. Whereas I think maybe Silent Hill F may actually give you answers to find.
Yeah.
And this is very much like Silent Hill 2 has all of these stories in the background, in the prison, in the hospital. They may never have anything to do with James. We don't know. Maybe they do. I don't know. They're not going to tell you. And it just gives you more tools to find parallels and all kinds of interpretations. And I
Mhm.
think that's something so special about this game that even if because I'm also not the kind of person who wants a tragic ending
Yeah.
intrinsically. I'm not that person, but I'm just like, no, it hits so good for me if the
Yeah.
endings aren't, you know, optimistic.
Hmm.
But if you want that, I totally understand it and I can see the argument for it.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm
I'm
part.
just usually not this person, and this game really brings it out in me, which is
Yeah.
another thing that's so
Well,
fascinating.
yeah, and there's a whole other conversation to be had about like happy endings versus bad endings or ambiguous endings or whatever. Like, and that could be a whole other podcast. Um, uh,
Yeah.
like I always try to, I always try to fall back on like does again kind of connecting back to what we were talking about before. Whatever way they decide to end this story, does it feel like they earned that ending? Because there are
Yeah.
happy endings that I've seen in like movies and media that I feel are unearned, and there are also sad endings in media that I feel are unearned.
Yeah.
Endings where they were just like, oh, you went for the worst possible ending just because, and it's clear you did it just because you wanted to be different or you wanted the audience to leave this movie feeling like awful or something. I don't know that the story was actually pointing in this direction. I'm not
Yeah,
just, yeah.
we won't talk about the magicians. We won't
Oh,
talk about
geez,
that
yeah.
because that's yeah, they didn't earn that in any way whatsoever.
Yeah,
Um,
but yeah, it's exactly what I'm talking about. Where like I feel like a lot of time people are like, oh, I like endings that are end bad because it's like it's like countercultural thing to do, or it's like you don't see that
it's
as
so
often.
edgy.
It's so edgy, and it's like, oh look, I don't care if it's a good ending, a bad ending, or something in between. I just want it to feel like it naturally flows out of the story they were telling, and
Yeah, I don't
sometimes
need a
that
good
doesn't
ending.
happen.
I need a good story.
Exactly.
And that's also kind of like how I feel like Hannibal needs to stay ended. I'm
Uh,
like I spoilers for a show that was on 12 years ago. Like going off a cliff, you can't end it any better than that. You can't
it is
end
a
it
really good
any
ending.
more symbolically, any more thoroughly. They earned it, let it go. I don't know that we need to go back to
Hmm.
it because they earned that.
Hmm.
Like where else was there even for them to go? I keep interrupting myself. But
Yeah.
and yeah, there is the after credits thing where it's kind of like, yeah, actually they kind of maybe did survive. But like in a very oblique, liminal kind of maybe,
Yeah.
often in legend and myth, they're out there somewhere. It's not as concrete as let's do a season four. And
Yeah.
is that a bad ending? Is that a good ending? I don't know, but it's a good story.
Yeah. All that said, if they somehow got the band back together for an adaptation of Silence of the Lambs with Mads Mikkelsen as Hannibal, I would be so there.
I would have I don't know what kind of feelings I would
Yeah.
have. I don't. Also, they would severely have to rework some of the
Yes.
elements of it,
Definitely.
but yeah, I there's a lot of things I would like to see, and I know that Brian Fuller remixes in very brilliant, but I can't think of the word I want.
uh,
Extravagant's not it.
it makes me think of.
It's
I can't think of the word that you're looking for,
free-handed.
but it makes me think of. I remember Theo bringing this up when we were talking about season 3 of Hannibal, where it's like sometimes Brian Fuller makes decisions where it's just like, okay, but why did you do that?
Yeah,
Like all of
God bless.
the weird like was it like MAGA imagery or something in season 3? I have such a
Yeah,
specific memory and or snails. That's what it was.
snails. It was
Oh my
snails. It
gosh,
was
it
snails.
was the
Oh my God,
snails.
I remember that episode with
Yeah.
Dracula's castle.
Oh my
Oh my God, the
gosh.
snails. Oh my
Anyway,
God.
now we're just reminiscing about something that no one listening to this is probably
Well,
well, some
but
people.
to that point, I
Yeah.
mean, these are two very different approaches that it's very free-handed and experimental
Mm.
and remixing. And then Bloober Team gets in here and makes the most faithful adaptation I could possibly think of while also expanding the game to three times
Mm.
its original length and putting in these beautiful new scenes that I was not able to tell were different.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea which ones, except in retrospect, I was able to sit there and think this dialogue does sound a little more natural and a little
Yeah.
more free and a little more involved, a little less stagey, which is that Lynchian
Yeah.
quality everybody talked about. So, like, in retrospect, okay, I believe you when you say this is new.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. But it felt so of a piece, and they went so far out of their way to say, hey, guys, we moved this part, we took this part out. You're going to see this later in a different form. We want to honor the fact that you know it should be right here.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a glimpse of the past. We love you. Please don't hurt us. We we know. We love it too, okay? And they just went so far out of their way, but yet also not to the detriment of the story.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a wonderful, and that's I'm gonna keep interrupting myself.
It's okay.
Um, it's the ADHD. You
Yeah,
you
I've
you
got it.
know you know
Yeah,
the life.
we
You know
both
the
have
life.
that. We are of
Yeah,
that. What does my therapist call it? Of that tribe, the
it's like
ADHD
we
tribe.
both we well, and there's Steve Silberman's book Neurotribes,
Mm,
which don't know if that's the greatest word for it, but that
yeah.
is a word people use. It's we both think faster than we can talk
Mm-hmm.
at times.
This concludes part 2 of our discussion. If you're watching or listening to this as it releases, part 3 should be coming out next Saturday. In the meantime, you can follow Cleo on most social media platforms as Cleo Linda or Cleo Linda Jones, and you can find all of my stuff via my website, ian-doherty.com. If you'd like to support us making more stuff like this, together or individually, you can also find each of us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/CleoLinda and patreon.com/Ian Doherty. Thanks for listening, and see you next time. Really
At
quick,
12, yeah.
um, I really need to use the bathroom.
Okay, we'll cut.
Yeah, so no, we don't even have to end right now
Oh
necessarily because I
no.
do want to do like a wrap up type thing. Don't stop the
I
recording, just let it
I won't.
run.
I'm just saying, like,
But yeah,
we'll cut this out later. I just want to ask you about Stillness when you come back.
yes, of course.
That's like the last thing, if nothing else.
But yeah, I'm just gonna mute myself and then I'll be back.
Okay.
Sorry, I was
No,
trying to
no.
figure out a natural place where you were finishing up, and I was like, I don't know if she's gonna keep going.
She might. She
Okay,
could.
I'll be right back.
Okay.